Welcome back to Developing the Leader Within podcast as we address leadership from different angles to bring you what you need to know to succeed. Today, I have with me Scott MacGregor. Scott is the founder and CEO of Something New LLC and founder of the Talent Champions Council. He's a four-time author of the Standing O series, which I personally love, and I have a book right here with me, and a record seven-time winner of the American Business Award for Innovation. Scott, thank you so much for being with me and welcome to the show.
Enrique, you're my kind of people. You're wearing the shirt proudly. You look good. It's an honor to be with you. I love everything about you, man.
Thank you so much. Folks, we're going to be talking about leadership and community. I'm telling you that in the last 2 years, if there's been anything that has been so vital to our sustainability and our sanity, to say the least, has been the ability to create communities. But Scott, before we get into leadership and community, tell us a little bit about you.
So, personally, I think a lot of things that have shaped my life is the way that I grew up. So I grew up very poor in an affluent town, which is a really interesting way to grow up. To me, sports and relationships leveled the playing field for me. So I was pretty decent at both. And relationships really later in my life professionally have made a huge difference, which has, created things like the Talent Champions Council. Professionally, I worked at a Fortune 500 company and got recruited at 29 to become a chief revenue officer for a startup with about 5 people. It sounded really good. And so I jumped at it, even though it was super risky and people thought I was nuts for leaving a Fortune 500 company to go to a 5-person startup. But I was there for 17 years. We grew it to about 300 people. We had double-digit growth every single year for 17 straight years, which is easy in the beginning, pretty hard at the end. And through that experience, I realized that building teams was really the most vital thing to a company's success. And the experiences that I was having with traditional recruiters really wasn't up to par. So I decided to build a different mousetrap. And that, a little over 7 years ago, I jumped off the cliff, became an entrepreneur, and started Something New. And then about a little over a year ago, I saw an opportunity to give back and help even more by starting a private membership community called the Talent Champions Council. And it's been just an absolute blast. So I'm a community guy. I'm a relationship guy. I believe in strong leadership and team building. That's really the core of everyone's success.
And I love it. And you mentioned, I have the shirt on because I am a TCC member. I've enjoyed every part of what you have built in that community. I've seen people grow exponentially because everybody is feeding each other. And, you have your series, your Standing O series behind you. I have one right here. I'll show that in a little while. But Scott, why community? Out of all the things you could be doing, why community?
It really stemmed from a long ride in the car with my wife. So Meg and I wanted to get out of Dodge during COVID. So this was late August, early September 2020. And so we decided, hey, where haven't we been that we'd love to go to? So we decided to go to Charleston, South Carolina, which was phenomenal. It lived up to our expectations. One mistake would be a guy like me going into a place that has 90% humidity and 90 degrees. I probably picked the wrong time of year to go. But what came out of that trip in a 14-hour or so drive back home was I was talking to my wife about how much I love my business, something new. The only thing I, was trying to figure out is how can we give back to an even greater extent that we do, and how do we reach even more people, because that business is not as scalable. And it hit me that all of the companies that we were working with to enhance their people strategy, these companies are just made up of individuals that need to lead teams, whether it's one person or 1,000 people. And I knew I could start a private community and bring in aspects from corporate America, bring in aspects from the military, bring in aspects from pro sports, to help people level up their people strategy games. And that's how the TCC got born. And I'm just a big believer in community. I think everybody wants to belong to something. I think when you feel like you belong to something, you feel like you've got a safety net. And especially during the pandemic, I think that's been really important.
Now that's interesting. You talk about safety net, and most everybody tries to find that, right? No one wants to be consistently in limbo or trying to wonder whether they got their back covered, or
Yep.
that sense of fear. No one really likes to just sit there, and so community is so important. And we've heard often that they say your network is your net worth. And I believe that that has a level of truth in it, because Lord knows that I've gotten some places because of the people that I
Sure.
know. Uh, and then there's a flip side of that is the people who know me, and
Yep.
so there's two elements of that saying that are true. But what's the difference between network and community?
I mean, in most cases, and I think it really depends on how you define both, but I think most people, their network, they consider that kind of the total number of people that may be following them or they may be connected to on a social media platform, be it LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. So I think if you think of it that way, you know, a network is more of a number, a community is more of a feeling. And it's also taking that number. I mean, if you don't have a relationship, it's all about relationships, and communities are relationship oriented, helping each other, supporting each other, having common goals, having common values. And you don't really get that necessarily from your network.
Yeah, that's so true. Earlier, we were talking about this specific question, and I shared it. I have almost 17,000 connected individuals on LinkedIn, and that's just one platform. And if I have community with 100 of them, that's saying a lot, right?
Yep.
I'm overestimating at times that number, and it's so true that just because you have the numbers does not mean you have community, does not mean you have oneness, does
Yep.
not mean that you're uh, helping each other, succeed in life. And community is indeed very important. Now, in community, some people would confuse environment. So, does the environment matter when it comes to community?
I think it does. You can easily get into the wrong community. And some people are attracted, to a certain community, um, really for the wrong reasons. It seems prestigious, whatever, but it doesn't necessarily, if it doesn't lift you up, if it doesn't match with your values, then it's probably not the right place for you. So for instance, the Talent Champions Council is all about really what's on your shirt. It's about people over everything leaders. It's about people that understand at their core that their success will be dictated by the teams that they build and how they pour into those people more so than anything else. So if that doesn't resonate, don't join just because you're going to get an opportunity to talk to a Hall of Fame coach like Dick Vermeil or a Navy SEAL or, you know, a soccer Hall of Famer and legend like Brandy Chastain or any of the people that we bring on to talk to our community in these live and interactive events that we do. If that's who you are, then join. If it's not, then don't join. It's the wrong place for you. If it's just, for instance, there's a lot of people, they don't really feel that way. They just want to join a community because, okay, that's an opportunity for me to network and sell whatever I have for a product or a service. And those would be the wrong reasons, the wrong environment.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I tell you that I joined the TCC, and for those listening, check them out. And I'm going to have all that information. It's part of the show notes, so folks can peek in and see what it is, and hopefully they'll see a value in it. I sure have, and I joined it because I just love the people in this group.
Yeah.
They are class act, top notch people that are not just leading in their industry, but they're leading themselves. And if that as a leadership developer guy, that's what I want to see in people, people that can not only speak about their impact, but they are showing the impact in themselves. And that is one thing I love about the TCC community and people.
Real quickly on that, it's interesting. So we call it Conversations with Legends series. We had a very famous Navy SEAL, Jason Redman, on yesterday, and he talked a lot about that, how important it is to lead yourself. And it's such an interesting concept. So anyway, that just very unique, that tie-in, because we just had that conversation yesterday.
It must be a Navy thing, I guess.
It must be. It must be. It's a Navy thing.
Well, I tell you, folks, I'll make sure that you get those links so that you can peer into or at least peek into what's happening at the TCC. It's a great organization. Now, leaders, and we're talking about leadership development and leading yourself. Leaders have a responsibility when it comes to community.
Yep.
So, what are some things that you can tell me that leaders can do to create community among their teams?
It's a great question. And I think so often this doesn't happen, and it makes for much less effective leaders. I think there's a few things. I think you can't be afraid to be vulnerable. For instance, Jason talked yesterday in his first book, which was called The Trident, which was a New York Times bestseller. He talked a lot about his failure initially as a Navy SEAL leader. And, he had to completely reforge himself. And he's very vulnerable, very, very vulnerable. So I think in order to build community, you've got to be vulnerable. If you're one of those, hey, I've got every single answer, that's not community. The value of community is you're picking, everybody's got something to offer and something to share. So I think number one, be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to get personal. So many people are scared to death to really get to know people, and understand we have this misperception that people are completely different when they walk in, to the office, or when they, are working virtual, when they're on a Zoom call. you still have your personal life and your professional life are totally intertwined, in my opinion. So I think one of the things that great leaders do is they do get personal and they understand what's important, whether it's that person's significant other or things that are going on in their life with maybe children or parents or whatever the case may be. Um, I think it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I agree. As you're talking, I'm reminded of a time I spoke to someone that um, was late, was late. Everybody's late, but you never hear leaders tell you what I told this individual, and I pulled them to the side and I said, "You, you know you're late. We know you're late, but did you know that I had a problem with being late? And this is what I did." And I suggested a couple of things, and the individual made positive strides. Did not get all the way there, right? Because there was the other
Yeah.
challenges, but at least made positive strides from me telling him, "Me too. I did that."
Yep.
And yeah, I'm the leader here, but that's the journey that I came through. You're on the
Yep.
same journey. You could
Yeah.
potentially be where I am,
Yeah.
if you just make these certain adjustments. And I tell you, it's probably one of the most powerful interactions that I had with one a team member, because vulnerability was there. I did not have all the answers at one time. I didn't have all the answers then, but letting them know that actually opened up a relationship, which is what we're talking about in community, right? The impact of relationship. Now, that was for leaders, and there's individuals, and I'm sure that they can share some of those similar tactics to creating community. But as an individual, what are the top things that you can tell me as an individual that I can do to create community and not just followers?
So I think you've got to be actively involved. You've got to have a servant's mentality. It's got to be about other people, not you. Um, you know, One of the things that I think has benefited me throughout my life is my first thought is typically, how can I help Enrique, not how can this monetarily benefit me? Because that's really playing the long game and not worrying about how things will play out from a monetary perspective. For instance, I think a lot of people don't engage and don't build certain relationships because they see things in a very binary manner. They say, how will this relationship turn into dollars in my bank account in the next 30, 60, or 90 days, rather than saying, this is a really interesting person that I think I can learn from, and I don't really know where it's going to go. And I don't need to know where it's going to go. I mean, my whole life, I've wound up in pretty good spots in my career. And when I get there, I, I'm like, how the hell did I get here? And when I reverse engineer it, it's like, oh, wow, it's not a straight line. It's always a crazy, circuitous path that got me to that place. And if I had thought in that kind of very binary way initially, I might have never built that relationship because, life takes all these different twists and turns, and you never know. Um, and I personally don't care whether there's a lot of really, really strong relationships that I have that are with people that will absolutely never do business with me. But their influence on my life helps me to do the things that I do at a high level. Um, so I hope that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that. Folks, if you're listening and you aim to have any impact uh, in your life to the life of others, you have to get to your head that it's not about you. Uh, Community, if it's set up right, will take care of you.
Yep.
That's a no brainer. It's going to happen, but it always starts with how much you put into it. And Scott, you've put a lot into it, and you have these 4 books behind you. Uh, which, matter of fact, I have one right here. So,
Love it.
folks, standing O, I have the Salute Edition. I have a military background, right? So that's the one that I got. But Scott, tell us a little bit about that series because it's where you have invested in the growth of others. Other people are in those books, right?
Yep.
And so tell me about that series.
So the origin is pretty interesting. It came from desperation. So when I started something new, one of the most important things to me was the ability to give back, and I wanted to give back in a significant, substantial way. There was a problem though. I knew I wasn't going to take outside funding. I had, already made up my mind that I was going to bootstrap the company because I really wanted the journey to be my own and I didn't want it to be dictated by outside influences. So because of that, I was pouring all the money or planning on pouring all of the money back into the company. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to write big checks to the organizations that I really was passionate about. So I thought, okay, this is a problem. Giving back is it's got to be the DNA of the company, but I don't have the ability to write a big check. So what are my assets? And I realized that my assets were all of these relationships that I had built over the past couple decades with amazing people from the world of, pro sports to the military to celebrity chefs, people in the art world, people in the corporate world. So I thought, that's my asset. How do I leverage that asset? And the thought came to me to write an anthology and ask my friends to write a chapter of gratitude for a life lesson that they learned. And then I'd put it in a book and I'd give all of the proceeds to charity. So I did that with a book called Standing O. And Dick Vermeil, who's a Hall of Fame Super Bowl winning coach, football coach, he wrote the foreword. Tiki Barber, who's an all-time great uh, football player for the New York Giants, wrote the cover quote. And we gave all of the money to charity. So we had 52 contributing authors in that book. And because I'm not a genius, I believe in the wash, rinse, repeat method. I said, well, that worked. I think I can scare up another 50 some odd friends. So I followed that up with a book called Standing O Encore. Heather Monahan, who's a 2-time best-selling author, wrote the foreword. Jesse Itzler, who's just a legendary entrepreneur, New York Times best-selling author, owns the Atlanta Hawks, married to Sarah Blakely, the CEO of Spanx. He's a good friend. He wrote the cover quote. So we followed that up with Standing O Encore, then followed that up with a specialty book, Standing O Salute, that you have to honor the folks in the military. So lots of, people from the military, generals, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, you name it. Then we followed that up again with a book called Standing O Encore. Brandy Chastain wrote the cover quote for that. And then we have Standing O Honor coming out in October. All the proceeds for Standing O Honor are going to go to Jason Van Camp and his nonprofit Warrior Rising. So it's just been a really great way to give back. The cool thing is every contributing author has an opportunity to memorialize somebody in their life and talk about the lesson that they learned from them and give them gratitude and then share that with the world. And obviously the benefit is all of the uh, proceeds and all of the attention from the books really goes directly to the nonprofits that we select.
That's a wonderful project, and I'm so glad to have that book and be a contributor in that fashion for those. And you've done a wonderful job, Scott. Now, if someone wanted to get a hold of you or get a hold of the things that you're doing, how would they do that?
I mean, the best bet is definitely LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram, but I'm much more active on LinkedIn. Believe it or not, I think I have 32,000 followers or something like that. I'm not a real social media guy. I do, but I'm very active on LinkedIn. It's a great way to build community and to build relationships. So definitely connect with me. Send me a message on LinkedIn. If you're interested in talent strategy, you can go to trysomethingNewNow.com. And if you're interested in joining the Talent Champions Council, you can go to talentchampionscouncil.com. We've made it extremely affordable for everybody. It's only $240 a year, and we have 140 live interactive events a year. So I don't know that there's a community that has a higher ROI. We are raising the price in October to $360. I still think it's insanely affordable at that price, but we didn't want it to be a community where we excluded people because they couldn't, afford the payment. I was actually talking to a friend of mine who pays $400 a month to be in a community that doesn't really deliver even a fraction of the value. So those are the best ways to get a hold of me. But I love meeting new people. I love building real relationships. I'm not into the vanity metrics though.
And I know that, and folks, I'm going to have that as part of the show notes and a video so that you can get a hold of Scott and all the ways of supporting not only the Standing O series, but the TCC. People over everything is what we believe in as a community. Thank you, Scott, so much for being with me today and sharing not only your passion for community, but what we can do, your tips about what we can do to build proper community. And folks, if you've enjoyed this episode and learned something interesting about the topic covered today, make sure to subscribe and let us know by leaving a comment on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter right now. We're always looking for new ideas and guests that can add to our show. So if you know someone or have a topic that you would like featured on the podcast, we love to hear about it by emailing us at triadleadershipsolutions@gmail.com. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode where we dissect leadership from another angle. And as we like to end the show, success to you.